Welcome in. It's week 5, and while we can't give you Mac Jones for $1,000 in your DFS lineup, we can definitely give you the best plays that we come up with dealing with mainly mainly DraftKings. I apologize. Mainly DraftKings, cash game plays, GPP plays, running through our lineup. Like always, we're ready to win you some cash here in week 5. And Devin, how are you doing this week? Let's kick it into it. I don't know if there's any strategy you want to talk about. I know that there's a big blocks of lineups that are making some cash games pretty difficult, but we don't need to go into that. And we can definitely start with our games of the week if you want to go that direction.
No, I mean, we can go into it. FanDuel's 50-50s are completely broken. So it doesn't necessarily make sense to play 50-50s at the moment. You might as well play head-to-heads, which is going to be the cracking FanDuel strategy this week because last week there were 55 of the 100 people in a given 100-person entry, all with the exact same lineup, which just screws everything up. If you're playing that lineup, it's really like over the long term, you're not going to win because you're paying the rake essentially. But that lineup's hot, so good for them. No, I wanted to talk today about how much I have a new least favorite quarterback in the NFL. And I think Jeff knows who it is. It hurts me to say this, but it's CJ Stroud. I'm sick of it. He came out with a quote today that says he's less athletic than he previously was. Dude, you're 23 years old and you were never athletic at Ohio State. Like, I didn't really like the guy at Ohio State because we talked about this. He sat on the bench by himself and moped every time. Like, the Northwestern game really bothered me when it was windy and he was just having a bad game.
When he lost to Michigan because he had a sore throat.
Yeah, he has passed J.J. McCarthy as my least favorite quarterback. I can't. J.J. McCarthy went to my rival high school in Lionstown, or from Lyons Township. He didn't go there, but like he's from there, and then went to Michigan. But C.J. Stroud is now my new least favorite quarterback. He's in a good matchup this week against Baltimore, so maybe, but not playing him.
All right, let's look at some games of the week. Phil, what games are you targeting this week?
Yeah, there's 4 that stand out on this week's slate. I think we could start in the early window with Raiders at Colts. Colts are favored by a touchdown, over under 47.5. We've seen that Raiders defense be extremely generous, the Colts offense be extremely efficient. So expecting a lot of action to cluster around that game. Believe it or not, the Jets are in a game that we're targeting this week, I think, because they're playing the Cowboys. And outside of that Baltimore defense that Devin mentioned, I don't think there's a worse defense in the NFL than the Cowboys. So some Jets players are going to be pretty chalky for the first time in a while, I think. And then you mentioned strategy at the beginning, Jeff. And one thing that stood out to me was that this is a week where we're going to want to be thinking heavily about late swaps. Late swapping is an underused tool by the field in tournaments. You know, most people set their lineups, go about their day because they have lives. And if their lineups are dead by the time they approach the 4 p.m. slate, so be it. They remain static. But DraftKings does give us the ability to change the players whose games haven't kicked off yet. And this week we've got the 2 highest total games happen to be the only 2 games that are being played in the late window. So we've got Lions as 10-point favorites against that horrendous Bengals defense. Could definitely be a lot of points there. And then Commanders at Chargers has a 48.5 point total. Chargers at home favored by 3. Jaden Daniels back in the mix for the Commanders. So I think those are the 4 main games. There's a couple that I like that I think could go over. They're low total, but we'll get to them as we discuss the plays, I think.
I think Miami Carolina is going to be really gross. but that could be interesting just because the volume that the Dolphins shoved through Jalen Waddle and Devin Achane, and the terribleness of the Carolina Panthers. Before we move on, please take a moment to like and subscribe and do all those fun things that you do on YouTube. We appreciate you all out there. I don't know if anybody's gotten the name of Phil's dog yet, but that probably can still be going on if you wanted to get that name. I know we had thrown out a pretty good pass to footballguys.com should you guess the name of Phil's dog. So feel free to go ahead and do that. But let's dive into our cash game plays. And we know Devin's not going to go with CJ Stroud, but he might go with another Ohio State quarterback. Devin, who's going to be your cash quarterback this week?
Yeah, I mean, it would be really tempting to go Stroud, but I'm not doing that. The Ravens have more injuries than I've ever seen a football team have on defense. And Kyle Hamilton didn't practice on Thursday, so I think it's now Marlon Humphrey, Roquan Smith, their entire defensive line, and Kyle Hamilton and Nate Wiggins. I think that's all of them, but who knows? It's Justin Fields, and it's not really hard.
It's Ohio State quarterback.
Yeah, it's 5,600 going up against Dallas. The rushing upside. I mean, the only way he doesn't get to cash value is if he gets hurt, and that's the game you're playing with Fields. He's with his rushing upside as well as throwing the ball. He's been throwing it pretty well. So, it's a clear cut. Not really going to even entertain another name spoken in this segment.
Phil, you can't say Trevor Lawrence's name in this segment or Baker Mayfield.
We're under running backs.
Yeah, we should probably just fast forward to running back. My first note under cash game quarterbacks is under Justin Fields, and it says, I don't even think there is anyone else to talk about at quarterback. So in lockstep with Devin, he's mispriced. Justin Fields is because that good game we saw against Miami happened on Monday night after the pricing for this slate came out. And shout out to our guy Sigmund Bloom. I saw him tweet today that if the quarterback who was playing against the Cowboys every week happened to be a single player, that they would be the QB1 on the season. So, yeah, let's move on.
The quarterback playing the Dolphins would be the quarterback 2 on the season. But let's look at running backs. And where are you going to go with your running backs this week? Phil?
This week at running back. So I think it's a week to spend up at running back. We've got Devon Achane at 7,300 was the first guy that I was looking at. He's got a role kind of tailor-made for PPR scoring. We've got no Christian McCaffrey on this slate, and no other running back besides McCaffrey and Devon Achane are commanding a target share upward of 20% in their respective offenses. And I think we can make the case that it might even be on the rise with Tyreek Hill now out and the targets in Miami consolidating even more. He gets the Carolina matchup that we usually circle for enemy running backs every week. The Panthers are holding up better against the run since week 1, but they're still bottom 12 rush defense in EPA allowed per rush and fantasy points allowed per game. I think this could be like a catches 10 passes and scores a touchdown kind of day for Devon Achane. Then we've got choices, but I'm going to pay up for 2 running backs. My second one is going to be Jonathan Taylor, and it's close here between Taylor and Jahmyr Gibbs, who I have projected for about the same number of DraftKings points. And Gibbs is actually even a little bit cheaper. But if A.D. Mitchell doesn't negate that 50-plus yard TD run at the end of last week's game for Taylor, then we're looking at him cooking a strong Rams defense and scoring over 25 DraftKings points for the third straight game. He's catching passes now, right? Daniel Jones still loves a good check down to his running backs, just like he always has. Taylor has 9 receptions in his last 2. And the only way he ever comes off the field these days is if it's a blowout. They could very well blow out the Raiders at home. But I think Taylor is probably the best running back in football through the first month of the season. And I'm going to keep it simple and just play the best guy. And then I'm also going to be flexing a running back. So I've got one more play, and that's Rashad White at 4,700, assuming Bucky Irving does not make it back for this week's game. I think Devin might be saying no because the Seahawks are hard to run on. They allow the second lowest EPA per rush. But I expect this to be a competitive game. Pretty much every Tampa game is competitive and kind of feels like they're trying to storm back in the fourth quarter and come back from like a one score deficit. I could totally see it playing out this way in this one again. And the thing with Rashad White is he's 4,700 and he's going to catch 5 or 6 passes. So even if he doesn't get it done against the Seattle defense on the ground, I don't see how he fails as a receiver. He's got a nose for the end zone. I don't think it's like Sean Tucker is going to have some goal line role. I think it's kind of going to be they rotate series, and whoever is in there when they get in close happens to be in there. So at 4,700, I think we have to pay down at the flex, and I think his salary, workload, pass catching upside, they do the trick for me. But I'm interested to hear which way Devin is going.
What if I told you there's a running back?
Real quick,
Go
I just
ahead.
want to say real quick, Chuba Hubbard is tracking toward potentially not playing. Rico Dowdle at
I hate
4,300.
you so much.
Yeah, so I figured we'd get into that. If we get Dowdle unlocked, certainly he's playing against Miami. Does he become a better player than Rashad White? I didn't think so, but let's hear Devin tell us why he is.
No, Jeff can go. I had this whole speech ready to go, and someone just took my fire. At 4,300, I mean, he caught 40 passes last year. He had 1,100 yards. People forget about him. Miami's defense is significantly worse than Seattle's when it comes to stopping the run. Like, they have arguably the worst defensive line in football, and on paper, they should have one of the best. But I don't know if there's a motivation issue there. I don't know what's going on in Miami. I mean, I think we all know, but like, there's coaching issues. And how's Miami going to move the ball? Well, the easiest path is Rico Dowdle really that much worse than this year's Chuba Hubbard? I don't really think there's that much of a difference. Chuba hasn't been the guy that we saw last year, and Dowdle looked fine last year. If Sean Tucker wasn't there, then and we knew Rashad White was getting the full workload, like yeah, maybe. But this is name another running back on Carolina. I think DJ
Trevor
Etienne.
Etienne.
Yeah, it's Trevor Etienne and DJ Dallas. Like neither of those guys are going to see any playing time.
Do you think that Woody Marks is going to be a trendy play, or do you think cash game lineups aren't going to touch Woody Marks? There's too much up in the air for that one.
I think there's too much volatility. I don't think he's a bad play. People will see at Baltimore and still be scared off. I'm not doing it. I would rather go like Alvin Kamara at 5,900. The Giants are allowing 6.1 yards per carry against the run this year, which is just like mind-blowing how bad they are. Outside of Dexter Lawrence, they have absolutely nothing to stop the run. So I think Kamara could be an interesting guy. His workload is really low, is the only problem. But particularly when it comes to catching passes, he's only averaging 3.2 receptions per game compared to it's like 4.8 last year and 5.8 2 years ago. So that's a concern. But I would rather find the 500 and go up to Kamara.
Okay. Let's look at wide receivers. And Devin, I'm not going to steal your thunder here. I'm going to let you just talk about whatever wide receivers you want to talk about.
Garrett Wilson, 6,100. I think that's the first name that pops there. He's getting far higher. And we talked about it back in week 1. I mean, these guys were college teammates. I think a big reason that the Jets felt comfortable with bringing in Justin Fields was because of Garrett Wilson. And it's showing, right? It's showing on the field, and at 6,100, the price is probably under what it should be. Quentin Johnston's probably the next guy, has that upside ability. Mike Sanderstill and Marshawn Lattimore are both struggling for Washington, so I think there's some deep plays that could be had. It gives you some leverage to that 3:30 game. And go ahead, Phil.
Sure. So I am in agreement with Garrett Wilson and Quentin Johnson as two of my guys for most of the reasons that Devin just laid out. Third one in my lineup. And remember, I went heavy spending at both running back positions. So we kind of had to kind of smooth it out at wide receiver with the salaries. Johnston does that. Wilson does that. Third guy who does it is Jalen Waddle at 5,400. He's incorrectly priced because the Tyreek Hill injury happened on Monday night. So we've got a newly minted wide receiver one we've seen him have huge seasons before, only 26 years old. And with Hill gone, I think he's going to get to run more deep and intermediate routes. And for once, the Dolphins should actually have a chance for those longer plays to develop. We know that their offensive line is the Achilles heel of that team, but the Panthers' pressure rate is the second lowest in the league. So we've got Waddle looking at more targets, better targets, and maybe the Dolphins are finally about to get their money's worth out of him.
Putting all your eggs in one basket of 2 Dolphins and 2 Jets.
What could go wrong?
Yeah, what could go wrong?
I hear you. The price is fine. Price is good. I just don't know about H. For me, it's one or the other, and I'm probably playing Waddle just because I think there's other guys in that range that you could go with, like a Jahmyr Gibbs instead of H. But it certainly raises your floor. If Miami can score 21, 28 points, you're probably getting at least one, probably 2 touchdowns.
Devin, you have successfully now stolen my thunder back. And so now you are the holder of the thunder on the show, because I was going to say, we talked about the Lions playing against that Bengals team, and then we ran through all of our running backs and all of our wide receivers, and we didn't mention the Lions once. So I was going to ask about how to get a Lion into your lineup, or if you should worry about getting a Lion into your lineup, or if there was too much volatility between where the points might go in that offense. We haven't really seen it as much this year. It's kind of been more focused on Gibbs and Amon-Ra St. Brown so far, but anything could change any given week. But maybe tight end is where you go to get that. But what is your tight end this week, Devin, in your cash game lineup?
Tight end. So if I look at the top tight ends this week, I kind of want to hear Phil talk about Mason Taylor and have 3 Jets in his lineup.
He's somewhere in this list of notes, but he's not in the cash game section.
Got it. Dalton Schultz is my guy this week, 3,600. I think that with all of the injuries that the Texans have, they are going to, or that the Ravens have, I should say, they are going to focus on trying to contain Nico Collins. And if that means doubling him, tripling him, like keeping a safety over the top, they're going to do that. Roquan Smith is out. That Kyle Hamilton is out. Those would be the guys that would cover the tight end. So I am intrigued by Schultz at 3,600 this week.
To be fair to Phil, the Jets did do exactly what you want to see in their offense, of only throwing it to Garrett Wilson, only throwing it to Mason Taylor, and Breece Hall. The injury to Braylon Allen made Breece Hall the feature back. So they are doing what you want to see despite lower volume out of there. But Phil, what is your tight end play at cash games?
Jake Ferguson, without much analysis needed. He leads all tight ends in targets, and it's going to continue for as long as CeeDee Lamb is out of the lineup. You could go with Tyler Warren. They're basically the same price, and I wouldn't have much of an argument there, right? Warren is probably the best tight end prospect we've seen in years, if Brock Bowers hadn't already been that guy last year. But I think the floor is more locked in with Ferguson, so I'd probably go there. When it comes to Dalton Schultz, like I know the matchup looks great. I just don't know that Dalton Schultz is like physically capable of delivering more than 6 DraftKings points on any given week. It's just like what he does. He's like the classic running back where you open a 4 yard hole and he gets you 3 yards. So like there's a floor there for sure. But that's all I see with Dalton Schultz.
Then
Watch
give
him
me
go for
Mason
like.
Taylor. You've convinced me. We're going all in
I'm
on the
stumping for Mason Taylor.
Jets.
Might as well throw Brees Hall in there too at
No,
5,600.
that's
I
a
mean,
road
the
too
price
far.
isn't bad.
Don't you say that.
Brock Bowers has missed practice this week. I believe he's missed both days of practice. So that might make things a little bit more interesting for maybe Jacoby Myers is the direction to go there. But let's open it up. Let's look at our GPP plays. We can talk about all those things in GPP. And Devin, I think that you probably, you laid out Justin Fields and that was the definitive cash quarterback. What is going to be the GPP play? Is it still going to be Justin Fields or there's a different direction to go here in GPPs?
No, you certainly can play Justin Fields. I think he's just going to be insanely popular. And for good reason. I have no issue if you just say, you know what, I'm biting the bullet. I'm taking Justin Fields. I will figure out being different elsewhere. Like, totally cool with that. But we have a show and we need to fill that show. So we're going to talk about some other players. Doesn't it sort of feel like it could be one of those Bryce Young 300-yard games that he has like once a year? Everything seems to be going too good for Miami. They just came off a win. Like, they're going to be popular. Yeah, Tyreek got hurt, but whatever. I don't know. They're at home. Miami's defense isn't any good. Chuba Hubbard's out. 4,700 is a pretty good price. I think Bryce Young's a decent play. The other options for me this week, nobody, and I mean nobody, is talking about Jaden Daniels at 7,000. He's going to be like 1% rostered, which if Fields doesn't, let's say Fields doesn't like hit his ceiling, who are the quarterbacks that have that upside? And yes, Jalen Hurts has it. I just don't like playing Jalen Hurts for whatever reason in any format. I think it's fluky. You're relying on tush pushes and getting down at the 1 yard line, and I don't like playing that game. But I think Daniels, this game could shoot out, and it's pretty stackable. Coming back on the other side with the Chargers, yeah, Terry McLaurin is out. That sucks, but like, I don't know. It may cause him to run even more.
Phil, you can't say Trevor Lawrence, so you got to say somebody else if you're going to play in cash games.
Phil is on mute.
Oh, sorry. So we're looking at tournaments, right? I heard you say cash games there.
I mean, not tournaments, GPP plays. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's fine. So on the topic of Justin Fields, I would just say that as of this evening, he projects as such an overwhelmingly strong play compared to his salary that I concur with Devin. He belongs in GPP lineups as well. And yes, you do have to get different elsewhere. So, just be aware you're going to be up against single stack Fields and Garrett Wilson lineups, right? So I have no problem with those lineups either, but maybe that is where you want to throw a Brees Hall in there with them or a Mason Taylor in there with them because, we're making jokes here about everyone's aversion to playing 3 Jets. That's a real thing. People are not going to want to do that. You could also use Mason Taylor. I think he's a fine tournament play. He seems to be coming on.
Or you just
but outside
Fields naked.
Yeah, less people will do that too. I mean, it always feels a little bit weird in tournaments to have an unstacked lineup, but smaller fields, I could definitely see it. My other guys, a guy I mentioned last week that he paid off his price tag, but didn't help anybody win a tournament, was Jackson Dart in his first career start. This week, he is more expensive. He's up to 5,300. He doesn't have Malik Neighbors. That sucks. But he's got some things going for him. 10 rushes for 54 yards and a touchdown last week. That included 7 design runs. And for context, he's now ranked 5th in the league in quarterback design runs after a single game. So 7 is a lot. So we know that there's some rushing that's going to happen to pad his stats. Also, the Giants ran a lot of hurry up. They ended up running 69 plays last week. That was despite a leading game script, as unlikely as that was. And that was well above what they were doing with Russell Wilson in the lineup. So now you've got the Giants running a lot of plays. The Saints average the fewest seconds per play in the league. They're playing fast. So we have the potential here for a lot of plays in a dome matchup, 2 bad defenses. Could very well be a shootout. And if that happens, I like Dart with the rushing upside to get something going. And then
Is Dart athletic?
He seems it to me. I
He
don't
only
know.
has
He
9
run,
months
right?
until he's only 9 months from now. He will not be athletic, according to CJ Stroud.
Well, they keep bashing him into the line, so I mean, he might not be athletic after that anyway.
Once he turns 23, he's no longer athletic.
They're treating him like rookie year Josh Allen, and he is about 30 pounds lighter than Josh Allen and about 2 inches shorter. And he's I don't know. It's potential is there. Definitely, it's a Tebow level fantasy production right now out of that attack. But I think it's a fine direction to go.
I was just taking a shot at CJ Stroud.
Yeah. But I mean, Dart
you got to take a shot.
Dart can complete downfield throws, though. It's not like he hasn't exhibited the ability to do that.
Yeah, but who's he going to throw to? Wan'Dale Robinson at 5'6"? Like, that's the problem. Who else on the Giants do they have to consistently throw the ball to?
Biletnikoff Award winner Jalen Hyatt. I mean,
okay. Still waiting for a receiver that I have confidence in. That dog, I'm not going to say that on air. But let's move on.
This is so gross. Really, really gross. But you talk about somebody that nobody's going to play that could be in a shootout. Jake Browning at 4,900 is really gross.
If you say it's gross, you can literally say any player that you want. So thank you for clarifying. If you didn't say it was gross, then we would have a problem. But
I'm just saying, you could go with Jamar Chase, and maybe there's Jamar Chase yelling on the sideline about "give me the ball," and the Lions. Maybe play Gibbs, play Amon-Ra. I'm just, you never know. It's going to be very gross. Nobody's going to play it probably. Running backs, Phil. Let's do some GPP running backs.
Sure. Real quick before my pain in the neck dog so rudely cut me off. I will say, Jeff, that Browning was on my list, so maybe it's not as gross as you think. I was getting to him. But moving on to running backs, this is where I like Jahmyr Gibbs a little bit better in the expensive tier because I think that people generally hesitate to play him when David Montgomery is active. So he'll probably be in like the 15 to 18% ownership range where Jonathan Taylor will probably get up higher, and I'm sure HN will get up higher. So Gibbs in tournaments, I mean, he could break multiple huge runs against that Bengals defense. So not very often that a first-round rookie running back that came in with Ashton Ginty's hype scores 37.5 DraftKings points, remains under 7,000, and isn't the consensus chalk the following week. But it looks like that's kind of where we are with him. And I know there's a strong case to be made that what we saw last week was more about that Bears defense that allows the highest yards before contact per attempt. And that's really what kind of gave Ginty the special sauce that he needed to overcome the Raiders offensive line that can't get any push. But there were some other encouraging things going on there too. His route participation was up. They were using him and featuring him in the red zone when they got close to scoring position. That Raiders line still stinks. It got worse. They lost Colton Miller, who's their only good lineman, and they're not playing the Bears again. But I'm not a believer in the Colts rush defense. I know that they haven't scored or they haven't allowed running backs to score a lot of points against them. But I think there's some touchdown luck involved there. And I like the leverage that Genty should provide off of those other popular, more expensive running backs. So I don't mind giving him another shot to see if maybe he's figured some things out or if the Raiders have. And the other one I like was Cam Scatterbo at 6,000. He's kind of priced in no man's land because people are paying up to the expensive guys or they're going down to the Rico Dowdles and the Rashad Whites of the world. So nobody's really hunting in that 6K range. And his usage last week was awesome. 25 carries, 19 pass routes. I mentioned the game environment being one that should be paced up. So a lot of touches are probably going Scadabu's way again. Neutral matchup against that Saints rush defense. So the possibilities there that he could get you multiple scores and give you the 100-yard bonus on the ground.
What do you have, Devin?
It's Saquon Barkley. I think he is not going to be popular because he played Tampa Bay last week and he played the Rams the week before. Both have really good run defenses. And this week he gets Denver. And if we know the way to beat Denver, their pass defense on the road isn't nearly what it is at home. So, you can still throw against them, but Philly kind of needs to get right offensively, which is weird saying that because, they're still one of the best teams in the league, but they no one in that offense is performing up to expectations. So I think Barkley could, at one of these weeks, if he continues to be low rostered, he's going to have an Ashton Genty type performance, and everyone's going to be like, "Oh yeah, 7,500. We should have played Saquon Barkley." So Barkley at 75 versus Achane at 73, and Achane's going to be a lot more popular. I think it's kind of a no brainer to look at Barkley this week. Gibbs is my favorite play of the week. I think that he's going to be continued to be used heavily until the Lions can figure out their interior of their offensive line. They have two relatively inexperienced guards. Graham Glasgow's 34 years old and on the downside of his career, and they have the best right tackle in the NFL in Penei Sewell. So they're going to continue to use off-tackle runs with Gibbs, which is going to help them. And then the last name that I will throw out there, looking through the list, is there anything that we like in Arizona? Probably not, right? Jeff?
The matchup.
Yeah. The matchup.
Michael Carter's 4K. I don't know. If he falls into the end zone, if he catches a couple passes, we've seen him as a pass catcher. In Amari DiMercato is not any good. Carter's not really good either, but $4,000, you could do worse.
You would kind of need Dowdle to dud out, right? In tournaments, because that's kind of the price pivot.
Dowdle, White, and Carter, right? And if you're telling me that there's a 5 or 10% chance that Carter's the highest player of those three, and the roster's percentages are all jacked up, heavily favoring Dowdle and Rashad White, then I don't love it, but as a dart, it's not the end of the world.
I mean, look, they're at home. They're favored by 7.5. That is the theoretical Michael Carter game script that you want, rather than the Amari DiMercato one. So I guess the more that we're talking about it, the better I might like that as a leverage play in a few spots.
Like I don't think I like Rico Dowdle in cash, but I don't love him in GPPs. I don't think Dowdle has like massive upside. But
That's fair.
I don't think Rashad White. I mean, Rashad White probably has the most upside of the group, but none of these guys are that great.
I think my primary concern on Dowdle will be we've seen Carolina just get absolutely nuked in some of these games, and it takes the run game out of it entirely. And if Miami they're able to do that, then you might get the pivot of Trevor Etienne as the pass catching back there instead of Rico Dowdle. So, I mean that I think could be in play potentially just to minimize Dowdle's impact.
Would ETN be the pass catching back, or would DJ Dallas be the pass catching back?
Etienne would definitely be the pass catching back.
I trust you. I just think of Dallas when he was back at Seattle and he's catching all the passes.
Yeah. No, they do like ETN. They just haven't had a real opportunity to put him in. But he's played some on offense, and I don't think DJ Dallas has taken. If he's taken an offensive snap, I'd be a little bit surprised.
He's a special teams guy at this point in his career, but I'm glad somebody likes Trevor Etienne because Georgia sure didn't last year.
Well, Marion Hampton at 6,500 is getting every single touch out of the Chargers' backfield. And he looked pretty explosive last week against the Giants. He was kind of the only thing that was working in them for them in their offense. Quentin Johnston got one deep later in the game, but really Hampton was kind of keeping them in that single-handedly almost. Cam Scatterbo, if I had to bet anybody on this board to hit 25 carries, I think Cam Scatterbo might have the best odds to do that. And then Death, Taxes, and Derrick Henry is playing the Texans. Derrick Henry has, I think it's 1,575 career rushing yards against the Texans, just outside the top 25 for most against a single team. You look at Baltimore, the mess there. Maybe this is a game where they feed Henry to try to get back on track. Let's look at wide receivers. GPP wide receivers.
3-0.
What's that?
I hope Baltimore Houston is 3-0. It won't be.
It very well could be.
I don't like either.
But how does it always plays out that like we're all loading up on Jets Dallas, and then that game ends up being 13-10, and then the game that like who was on Woody Marks last week that actually put him into a lineup, and then he goes off and goes crazy. But I feel like it always ends up playing out that way.
If CJ Stroud,
Devin calling the Steelers in week 1, and we made fun of him, but
because I'm a genius, and you guys just didn't realize it. But if CJ Stroud has 300 yards and like 3 touchdowns, I might quit the
show.
We could never do the show without you, Devin. So CJ Stroud, don't let us down. Don't make us lose Devin. All right, wide receivers.
And the chat is now going to be rooting for CJ Stroud to throw for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns so that I'm off the show.
Well, he's not moving well enough to be able to, at his old advanced age, to throw for 300 yards anymore. So
he wants an AARP card. Okay. Wide receivers. Enough jokes. Let's get serious. Keenan Allen, 5,600. I think Jalen Waddle at 54 is going to be one of the most popular plays this week. But I think Allen is a fine pivot off of that. Certainly Quentin Johnston is getting all the love based on last week, but Allen is still very productive in that offense. Looking down a little bit, if you want to take a Miami receiver, I don't hate taking a chance on Malik Washington at 3,900. He'll allow you to spend up pretty much wherever you want. Michael Pittman at 5,100 is another cheap play. He scored 15 at $5,100. He scored 15 or more DraftKings points in 3 of his 4 games this year. I think a lot of people have written him off because of what we saw the last couple years with Anthony Richardson. But if you remember back to his rookie year, like this was a guy who had a lot of potential, a lot of hype. He kind of got overshadowed by Josh Downs, but I think he's sort of returning sort of under the radar, and people aren't buying into the Daniel Jones is for real scenario.
He picked up a midweek hamstring. I don't know that he's going to be playing. So
he's fine. He'll be all right. And if not, don't play him.
advice.
Yeah, great advice. Jackson Smith and Jigba against Tampa Bay. I don't see any scenario in which Seattle is able to run the ball against Tampa Bay. Nobody has so far this season. They've allowed one running back to run for over 40 yards, and it was Nick Chubb who, at the end of the game, they let run that 24-yard touchdown so that they could get the ball back. So I don't see a world in which certainly Zach Charbonnet, it would take him 100 carries to run for 40 yards against Tampa Bay. So the only way that Seattle has a chance in this game is to be able to throw the rock.
Phil, you got anything?
Did we lose Phil again?
No, I keep getting caught on mute. I'm like a total rookie between that and the dog barking here. Yeah, just to build on what Devin was saying about Jackson Smith and Jigba, I have him projected to score just about the same as Amon-Ra St. Brown. And those are my two highest scoring receivers on the slate. And JSN is about $800 less. So there's significant value there. He's cash viable too if you could fit him. I couldn't find a way to work it. I like the mid range better at wide receiver, but I wouldn't. I'd actually be pretty scared if someone flipped over their cash game lineup and showed me that I was playing against JSN and didn't have him. I think he's a great play this week. My guys are Nico Collins, 6,800. I know that Devin said that the Ravens plan on taking him away, but I don't know that they're going to have much luck. That defense is bad. They are worse against the run than the pass, but they still allow about 20% more fantasy points than league average to opposing wide receivers. And it's just easy to picture Collins bullying these guys. He's got the target share over 25%, the air yard share over 40%. If the Texans are going to move the ball, he's going to have a lot to do with it. And he's got an awesome role in the red zone. And I think that all of that running back spending is going to result in Collins probably coming in around the 15 to 18% range, which I like for GPPs. I think you could go over that. I think so. I mean, you said
he's only top 15 DraftKings points once this season.
But he's still Nico Collins. He still makes a highlight reel catch every week. That people get that vividness bias when they think about him. And what I've learned over the years is that when you're surprised at an ownership percentage after everybody turns the cards over on Sunday, it's usually because of fantasy points allowed to the position. That's kind of where I found that, oh my God, I wasn't expecting this guy to be so high owned. And it's usually just because of the matchup. So I think people might be a little bit more keen to this matchup, even though it's the Ravens, than we're expecting. But
I have him at
21%.
Collins, so projected. So, but he's like the number one guy that I don't trust my own projections on. I'm just looking at trusting everybody else having him that high, and it's like, okay, I guess we're doing this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just think that we're going to see more spending go towards running backs. But who knows? If there's two cheap running backs in play now, I might be off there. I really haven't ran the slate with a chalky Rico Dowdle. So we'll see how that goes too. George Pickens, 6,600. That's one that I can't peg down in terms of percent rostered. I haven't seen it that high across the industry. Where do you have him now, Devin?
9%.
9%. Yeah. So that's the range that I've seen. But, we're going to get a lot of action on that Jets game. We're going to get Pickens as the run back a lot in these Justin Fields lineups that we're going to see a lot of. So I don't know. It wouldn't surprise me either if he ends up over 20%. So that's one that I'm going to watch very closely heading into the weekend in terms of how popular he's getting. But in general, it's hard not to like him right now. He's the best healthy wide receiver in this Dallas passing offense. That looks great. He's been a red zone monster. He's tied with Devontae Adams for the league lead in end zone targets. And he gave us a glimpse this last week of what his ceiling looks like when Lamb isn't in the lineup, and it is about as high as it gets. So
You always have to worry about a fight, though.
a fight or like a who knows what
Throwing
you can't even
not having a backup, like he's breaking it. Like you have to factor that into the optimizer, and I don't know how to quantify that.
fair enough. Real quick, I got a couple of other plays. One is Marvin Harrison at 5,400. I think I might just be rooting for Marvin Harrison after watching the entire internet dance on his grave in the first half of last week's game, only to watch him come back with some nice plays, including a touchdown, getting Arizona back in it. They almost snuck out of there with an unlikely win over Seattle. His target rate leaves a little bit to be desired, but everything else looks pretty good. The air yards, the red zone involvement, and I like Kyler Murray in general this week. I don't think anybody's going to play him. We haven't seen him look great all year, but I think it's a good game set up for him. We talked about Arizona being heavily favored at home. I think he could get Harrison over 100 yards for the first time this year against the Titans. They allow the sixth highest yards per pass attempt in the NFL. And one more narrative-based play would be A.J. Brown at 6,000. I don't think there's a squeakier wheel squeaking out there. And Denver is tough, but what I like about them is that they can challenge the Eagles' offense to come out of their shell a little bit. And I get it; it's been disappointing, but it's still AJ Brown. We saw it a couple weeks ago where he went for 25 if they're throwing to him, and he's $900 below his week one salary, significantly lower than the 7,500 range where we used to get him. I mean, you look at AJ Brown at 6K and low ownership, it's kind of hard not to get excited about him in tournaments.
Jameson Williams at 4,900. We haven't seen him put it together for a big game yet, but against the Bengals, he had 8 targets last week, and Dan Campbell after the game said that is a guy that we need to get going. So I think that opens up pretty well there. Xavier Howard for the Colts cornerback almost retired, almost pulled Devontae Davis and quit at halftime, but he quit like right after Puka Nacua just ate his soul last week. And they do not have any corners or they have one good corner, Charvarius Ward. The other corner is an absolute mess. Going up against the Raiders, I would imagine Ward is probably going to be on Jacoby Myers. That could maybe Trey Tucker goes back to the well there and hit a couple big plays if you wanted to go that direction on a GPP. Nobody's going to play Ladd McConkey this week. So if you really wanted to do something interesting, maybe it's Ladd McConkey week. But Josh Downs, maybe if Michael Pittman scratches, that might be a direction you can go at 4,100. That's about all I have right now. Let's look at tight ends. Phil, give me some tight ends on your GPP board.
I swear,
I know maybe Taylor, obviously, but
if you take the guy,
I don't think I am
heading to your house to kidnap your dog.
Leave my dog alone. So, I mean, that tight end is gross. I hate the tight ends outside of the big three guys, McBride, Warren, and Ferguson. I don't even know what you do. I like Zach Ertz at 3,800 with Jaden Daniels coming back. He had touchdowns in both games with Daniels this season, reached double-digit DraftKings points. So he's definitely a better play with Daniels in the lineup. And then the other guy that I had is also kind of a hope and a prayer, but I like the Giants this week. I like Dart. Targets are going to consolidate there and open up for Theo Johnson, who caught a touchdown last week. He had 5 targets, which was a season high. So new quarterback, new tendencies. Maybe we're onto something with Johnson. That guy is as big and fast as human beings are allowed to get. So he's got the athleticism going for him too. That's all I got. I'm interested to hear who this super tight end play that Devin has is.
let me clarify. I don't know that it's a super play. It's going to take a couple things to go right. Number one, Juwan Johnson needs to miss this week. And he was limited on Thursday. He missed practice on Wednesday. Number two, the Saints activated Taysom Hill off of the PUP list. At $3,000, just saying, against a defense that is allowed, I mentioned, at 6.1 yards per carry, I could see Taysom Hill having a role in this offense if Juwan Johnson does end up missing. The only other guy that I'll mention is Mark Andrews. Like, just the inclusion of Cooper Rush could be a change of pace for the Ravens, and including throwing more heavily to the tight end position. We just don't know how that's going to go. We saw Luke Schoonmaker and Brevin Spann-Ford both have big games with Rush last year at quarterback. So I think Andrews is certainly in line for a potential. If they're going to throw to a player, it could be him.
Tommy Tremble at 2,900 had 8 targets last week. Xavier Legette already scratched. David Moore was put on IR. They basically have Tedero McMillan. They're playing Bryson Tremaine. They have Hunter Renfrow, who is not getting like a very high snap volume. Tommy Tremble is almost like the number 2 option for Carolina. You're looking at a gross game going up against Miami that just saw Mason Taylor have a good game on Monday night. Under the radar, night direction to go at 2,900. Let's look at our favorite stacks of the week. And Phil, why don't you lead me off with your favorite stack of the week?
Sure. So there's a reason that I'm wearing this hat tonight, and that is because of our Stack of the Week segment. For those who don't know, I moved down to the Tampa Bay area about 3 years ago, so I've been a lifelong Buccaneers fan for the last 3 years now. And I'm going to roll with it this week. We've got Baker Mayfield, Emeka Egbuka, Chris Godwin, run it back with Jackson, Smith, and Jigba. So the thought process here is, like I said, Tampa is getting into these high-scoring games that are close and down to the wire. Both teams, I think, are going to have to pass in this one because this is 2 strong rush defenses. And the targets without Mike Evans are really, really consolidated between Egbuka, who is overpriced, by the way. He's not a good standalone play, but the field won't be on him, I think, because of that price tag. And he's going to get all the targets he could handle. Same goes for Godwin, who, for him to draw 10 targets while knocking off that rust last week in his first game back from like basically his lower leg falling off, I was pretty happy to see that. And I think him being another week past the injury is good. And then we talked about Smith and Jigba being a great play. So I think that's not only a game that people won't be on, I think that's a salary allocation that people won't be on either, with Egbuka and JSN as 2 expensive wide receivers in the same lineup. So I like how different from the field you could get there, and I think it's got upside. I think that could be a high-scoring game no one's on.
What do you have, Devin?
Yeah. I like this week the combination. I think this Miami-Carolina game, there's some combination there that intrigues me. And I keep going back to Bryce Young, Tedero McMillan, and Jalen Waddle. It seems like this is the week that people are finally out on McMillan. His price has gone up to 5,700, which is probably part of the issue, but I think it's at least intriguing for him to have a breakout game at any point, and going up against Miami's secondary certainly is a inability to do that. The other stack I'll go with, I do like Jameson Williams call, so like a Jared Goff, Jameson Williams, Jamar Chase type play. If you wanted to go Browning instead of Goff, you could do that too.
I'm going to take the low-hanging fruit. I'm just going to go with Justin Fields, with Garrett Wilson, with Breece Hall. Bring that back. Jake Ferguson, I think, is just too good of a play at tight end. I mean, you could throw Devontae Williams in there if you really wanted to, or George Pickens. But I just think what you're getting potentially against just this Dallas defense, you just got to beat this Dallas defense up until they figure something out. I heard on NFL radio somebody called in, a Cowboys fan, said that they were signing Jadeveon Clowney and they thought that would replace the loss of Micah Parsons. So that's where Dallas fans are right now, and so I think just take it while you got it.
Is
So what is
Jadeveon Clowney the most overrated player in NFL history?
He's really up there. I mean, really up there.
Like when he was on the Browns, I would make that joke.
That one sack.
People would compare him like, oh, they have Myles Garrett and Jadeveon Clowney. I'm like, okay, so they might have the best pass rusher of all time and a complete bum.
I think he's played for every single NFL franchise at some point in time, and every single fan base has said, it's Jadeveon Clowney, and yeah,
because he had that one.
Has one play? I was going to say, has one play ever done more for a guy's career than that one sack that he had where he shot?
To be fair, he was very, very good the year before he was draft eligible, and then he was double teamed in college his senior year or junior year and had like 3 sacks. And I think his career high in sacks is like 7 in the NFL. Just a very average player. Kind of like this podcast.
The Jadeveon Clowney of podcasts. Check out the Footballguys DFS Show.
Hey, if they want to pay me like Jadeveon Clowney, like I'll be average. That's fine.
All right. What do we got? One cheap play left.
Yeah, that's what we got.
All right. I'm gonna take another opportunity to plug my weekly article, DraftKings GPP Domination. I do a similar section in that article every week for the best low-owned, high-ceiling play. That play, which I usually get to a little bit later in the week than we record this podcast, is now 3 of its last 3. It had Alec Ayamaner in week 2. It had Trey Tucker with the explosion game in week 3. And it had Jets boy Tommy Tremble in there a week ahead of time last week. So I'm doing better there than I am on the show. But the first thing that stood out for me as I looked through the bargain bin was Nick Westbrook-Akine at 3,400. I think people might be a little overconfident in the way that Miami's wide receiver pecking order is shaping up without Tyreek Hill. Malik Washington, everybody assumes his role is going to grow, but what if he just remains the slot guy? I think that's kind of likely. I mean, he'll see another target or 2 by default just because the targets there are going to consolidate, but it's going to be Westbrook-Akine, I think, in 2 wide sets running opposite Waddle. Waddle is going to be in J.C. Horn's coverage this week. And Westbrook-Akine, his ceiling is not just theoretical, right? This was the same guy who scored a touchdown in Lord knows how many consecutive games last season. Like, he just wouldn't stop. So I'm open to him being better than we think.
I'm not open to thinking he's better than we think. Is there any love for either of these Dallas guys, like a Jalen Tolbert or who's it, Turpin?
I think Turpin is dinged up.
Or is it just a Ferguson Pickens offense?
So Tolbert's getting like 5-6 targets. He's playing most every snap. So if you want to make the argument, a guy that's going to be on the field and could find his way into the end zone, he does kind of bring that a little bit there.
I'm going Kevontae Turpin. 60% snaps. Hasn't done a darn thing. But he has speed to burn, and all it takes is 1. Good analysis.
All I'm going to say is that right before the game, they asked Dak Prescott, like, where are you going to go here? And he said Jake Ferguson and Kevontae Turpin. And I grabbed a bunch of outlines and none of them hit. So, I mean, that's something that's out there. But I'm going to go with my Ronda guess in the second. I think that we saw 7 targets 2 weeks ago. he played the most snaps out of the Chargers tight ends last week. The Chargers tight end just offense couldn't get anything rolling at all. At 2,700, bargain basement tight end to potentially plug in there in an offense that could be in a back and forth shootout matchup. All right, that's all we've got. So, Devin, do you have any parting words of wisdom for our great audience here?
Wisdom, no. But if you're still here with us after an hour, thank you. Like, honestly, thank you for listening. Like, it's a fun thing for us to come and hang out on Thursdays and sort of just share our thoughts. And yeah, I get a little silly at times, but I do appreciate everybody who has stuck with us over the last, we've been doing this for a long time. We'll just put it that way, like 10 years. So thanks, everybody.